Welcome back to Ordinary's second video. This is another Elder Scrolls Online video, and in today's video we're bringing you Templar healing. I entered into my second dungeon as a Templar healer, this time level 34. The first one I did was level 17, which was significantly harder. And this time we're doing Direfrost Keep, Ebonheart Pact. I play a Breton Templar. And the purpose of this video is basically to showcase what Templar healing is like, what healing's like in ESO as a whole, and where it has holes and where it has strengths. I'm going to show you 3 different bosses in Direfrost Keep, and you'll get to see my Templar in action. The first part of this video will be narrated, and then the rest, after I'm done with my commentary, will just be game sound. Now this boss, is mostly kite and kill kind of boss. There really wasn't many special mechanics. The boss hits fairly hard. You can see up there in the top left hand corner, the tank is taking some serious damage on hits. But it's fairly infrequent, and there all of a sudden the tank dies, goes from 80% to 0, and there was really very little I could have done there except to have him maybe topped off and had a chance at spamming my smart heal, my 4th heal there on my bar, to keep him alive. Unfortunately, this brings up my first complaint in Elder Scrolls healing, and that's that it's largely a hold your breath and rely on your smart heals kind of system. You see another one of my party members goes down right there, just from a one-shot. There's really nothing I could have done, and part of this does fall on my party for not kiting this boss effectively, but overall, the spikes and the type of healing that's required in this game is really not my style. It's not what I like to do. I like games where you have to plan out your heals across a fight very intelligently, rather than just going with knee-jerk, reflex-based reaction heals, which is what I feel like right now this game's healing model trends towards. That being said, I was able to heal this dungeon with relatively few problems. The deaths you see in this fight are 2 of maybe the only deaths that occur in the entire instance. I probably had about 4 or 5 total party deaths. It wasn't too bad, and it was much easier than my level 17 healing experience, where I had very few skills and thus very few resources. My mana regen is definitely good enough to cover the heals that I need to cast, and the tank, I will say though, was a few levels above the instance, which made everything significantly easier, whereas my 2 mage party members here are a level below the instance. Templar healing, especially in this sort of encounter, is fairly simple. You can see me attacking the boss with my resto staff because those heavy hits restore a percentage of the value to all party members around me as one of my passives. My 4th heal on my bar is a Templar specific heal, and it's a smart heal that heals a single target for a large amount and restores magicka over time, which is one of the buffs you see under my unit frames there, based on if the person is below 50% health. It's probably the heal that I've used the most, and the one I've definitely relied on. This is the second boss fight in the instance. This is, I believe, the final boss of the instance, or maybe the next to last. This boss was, again, very simple, not very difficult. One of my party members is actually just offline, so we 3-man this boss without much difficulty. It really comes down to avoiding a lot of the AoE, continuously moving as you see me doing here. The rotation's fairly basic. I use an area of effect heal, my first button, every now and then, but mostly I use the second button, which is a heal over time cast on multiple party members, and my third button, which is a conal heal, a unique thing to ESO, that also instills a lot of armor and spell resistance, and then the 4th button is a big single target heal that I use most often. And then the rest is just staying out of junk, keeping yourself safe, and occasionally switching to my other hotbar, which is sword and shield at the moment, for some quick stuns or some other utility like repentance, which restores stamina and health. I haven't found it super difficult. I have found it rather unenjoyable. I don't necessarily think it's challenging so much as unfair. The way the system healing works, with spike damage and gut wrench reactions, takes a lot of the intellect and planning out of it. It makes it a key spamming game. It feels, on the whole, unrefined is probably the best way to describe the healing system in ESO. Doesn't feel like there was a lot of thought put into it, and overall it's sort of just a spam some of your buttons and pray that they work at the right times, at least in my experience so far. I haven't been unsuccessful, so it's not me whining. It's just me wishing that the system was a bit more polished, and really that the game as a whole was a bit more polished. Dungeons as a whole feel completely unrewarding, especially with experience. You see my experience bar barely move throughout the entire dungeon, even at the end. And the loot isn't good, so the incentives really just aren't there for players to be running these dungeons. The PvP I found extremely impressive in ESO, PvE not so much. This is the final boss of the instance, and was really a fairly easy time for us. There was not, again, we're 3-manning it, didn't even need that 4th party member. I don't know what that tells you about the 4th party member, but it really wasn't too bad. So I'm done with my commentary for this video. Again, healing feels unrefined, dungeons feel unrefined, and while it's not super difficult, it does feel, on the whole, a little unfair.